Good morning and happy Easter. So, something that later on in life I started to hate is the fact that someone or a group of people told me that because I was born in a certain part of the world, I had a nationality and I have to celebrate certain celebrations. Now, the fact that someone is telling you that you have a nationality and you hold a passport, and I found it one of the biggest scam ever. I mean, there are a lot of scams that our society told us to be normal. This is nationalities and borders is one of them because technically what we are free range humans that move around a certain land, and if we want to leave that land we need to show a piece of paper that might be or might not be enough, because then there are other imaginary countries with imaginary borders that might accept or might not accept your passport based of some group of people deciding that your free range human country it's good enough to leave. Now, the fact that if you are born in a certain land with less resources or bigger corruption, consequently with much more poverty and struggling, and because you just by accident you were born there, you cannot leave because other imaginary countries decided that is a risk to allow the people from that land to move freely. It's insane, and as much I understand how human mind works, I just find insane that we believe this bullshit. Now, to make people believe any kind of bullshit, it's easy. You just need to tell them the story since they are little kids, since they are little babies in that sort of brainwashing buildings we call schools. So once they are adults, you don't really need to do much more. Every now and then you need just to reinforce that brainwashing belief, because that's how it works. Right? That's why people believe anything that have been told them since they're kids, and they would just replicate when they are adults. Now, obviously, there are exceptions that for some reasons are able to escape that kind of brainwashing belief system. There are exceptions, and I'm not really sure why some it's capable of and some not, and most are actually not. Now, what we can see clearly, especially with what is happening now, with all the distractions that they are throwing to us in a daily basis, the moment that, for whatever reason, a larger group of people starts to wake up from the conditioning, that's when we get distracted in any kind of form, from real or not so real wars, real or not so real climate change, real or not so real viruses, diseases, and so on, blah blah blah. They're distractions. They're only just distraction from people becoming aware of what is being done to them, and obviously to distract people from the other dirty businesses that they are actually carrying right now. Now, all of this is bullshit. Celebration is bullshit. The fact that you have to celebrate something just because you were born in a land is bullshit. The fact that you believe in a certain God instead of another is another bullshit. Nothing wrong with that once it's your own decision to believe in whatever you want to believe. What the problem is when you've been told to believe in something and you have no choice, or you give no choice to questioning. That's the problem. Now, again, borders is bullshit. Passports are bullshit. Nothing of this is real except a bunch of people that over the years and probably over the centuries been able to maintain for their own interest this belief system. Don't forget what they were doing in South Africa during the apartheid. So to the population, to the Africans, they were teaching only their language, and they were teaching them only manual labor, and they would keep them away from the whites that at the time were the British. So they were growing thinking that all they could do was that certain type of jobs, and those jobs in reality were only to benefit the ruling class that were the white, the British. So for a long time they basically grew up making kids and teaching the same value, with the idea that all they could do was that kind of jobs, because they've been made to believe that that's all they could do, and to make sure that they would not blend with the British and the whites, because there was not just the British at the time, were basically like not teaching them any English so that they could not even communicate. Now, look at what's going on in this fucked up planet. Every so-called country, the free-range human beings living inside those countries speak different languages to prevent the exchange of ideas. So obviously now it's different. Now with English, internet, it became much more easy. But look at what's happening right now. Somehow, all the so-called madness that is happening now. It didn't happen like so much, in such a short time. Maybe 20 years ago, when obviously it was easy to manipulate and control populations. So it's not a coincidence to me that we're having a war after another, a crisis after another, and so on. And constantly we are basically, they're pushing us back, increasing prices, because obviously they created a system called the economic system where everything is based off. So if you cannot making enough, you're struggling, and obviously the last things you're gonna worry about is to understand life. You will try to make ends meet, to have a food on the table. So it looks to me a perfect plan, right? So we've been taught since we are kids that the only way to survive is to being part of this system, doing certain jobs for a certain amount of hours, and that jobs would give us some like money to buy food. And we believe that because that's what they taught us. That's all they told us, right? You have a passport, you have a country. You have to be proud of your country, you have to be proud of your culture. You have a job, the job will require 8 hours a day, that it will never be 8 hours a day. 1 hour to go to work if you're lucky, 1 hour to go back home, break, thinking, worry, stress all around the job. How much actually you have really to enjoy your existence? Very little, and then you go to sleep. We've been taught that all we can do is this, and all we have is this, and this is the only way we can survive. Doesn't look much different than what they done at the time in South Africa. They created two type of schools: public, private. Private, it sounds to me like at the time of South Africa, the South African time, the white, the ruling class, to create more like them. You have a public school that now is basically just a building where you teach the majority of people to serving the people, the minority in those private class, in those private schools, that we become the new rulers. It doesn't, to me, it looks exactly the same, just changing the system. So, again, we have been made to believe whatever they told us to believe. And probably there is so much more. There is so much more. There is so much more. And that's, of that so much more, that's what those videos are about. So, this is what I was going to tell today. This is a story of those something else things that is happening in a daily basis to a lot of us, and then no one of the people that are maintaining this system wants to tell us, because that means questioning. Questioning brings to demanding answers, and then if the answer are not matching the new belief system, that's when unrest and change happening. So that's why what I strongly believe is happening right now. They're preventing this change to happen. So anyway, I was working in South London a few weeks ago, and there was this nice guy, it's like in this 18, 19, really nice guy, and we had a really good day, working, chit-chatting, talking about what everybody should talk about, what's wrong in our system, talking about how can we change it, and talking about that aspect of life that it's ever present, that we can only see when we match the right frequencies, and that's what they made us to believe to be something strange, like they call it supernatural, like the other side, psychic, spirituality. So they they created a lot of terminology to make it look like something strange, something unusual, something weird. And it's not. It's present in a daily basis in our life, and it's always there. And if we were not distracted by all this bullshit system we've been taught to be part of, we would probably focus more to try to understand it, and that would lead to experiencing many of those so-called supernatural or mystical events. They are not supernatural, they're not mystical, are actually part of this mystery we call life. And that's why I'm sharing stories, my stories and the stories of people that most of the time are worried to talk about it because they don't want to be judged. Because obviously the system made sure that to make people that experience those certain things, like as a crazy, as a psychopathic, as in need of psychiatric help, because to make it like discredit, it's a discredit system purposely created so that anything that doesn't maintain that belief system they imposed upon us, it's seen as mad and insane, and it's not. It's absolutely part of it, actually even more important of all this scam we've been made to believe. So they are telling me stories because obviously I did experience similar things. I write about, so they feel more, obviously, they feel free to tell and talk because they know they will not judge. So the story this time is, we were talking about meditations and how in my case, many times in a very deep meditation, I could experience visions, voices, and that would happen only if my frequency would be on a higher state. So he tells me that one day as well, him as well, had this, for him, like strange event where he was in a very deep meditation, and then a blue ball of energy becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, all of a sudden just like a flow, if I can say the right word, flow toward him, like it basically came toward him and engulfed, I would say, like all his body was like surrounded of this energy. And that's when he opened his eyes and all was over. And obviously being young and fully inside this prison that is our belief systems, he did not trying to understand. He might he might later on in life try to figure it out what actually was it, try to understand more deeply about it. But at the moment, like many of us, we just dismiss it and move on with this fiction, this illusion that is our society. I mean, it's like when I was a kid, because obviously nobody ever told me about it, nobody ever spoke about it. I would have some days where I was very like relaxed, and would happen especially if I had some physical activity, and I would go back home and just lie on my bed with closing my eyes, just to relax, just to relax, and it was a really like nice peaceful moment. It was beautiful, like the body would be completely like really relaxed, all the muscle would be relaxed, and I was there really enjoying that moment in silence with my eyes closed. And that's when like images, like clear images of people, of buildings or situations would just literally shows in my mind, like a movie. And normally was always like a black and white, and it would be always in the form of some sort of like, how can I say, smoke that would move and then shape faces and buildings or landscapes, but of such a like detailed shape that, you know, undeniably they were images, you know, like it were too detailed. But I always like assume that it was something that everybody would experience every now and then. So I never spoke about it. I mean, there was not even the thought about being judged. I just didn't speak about it because I thought it was just a normality that everybody had. So only growing up, getting inside this fucked up system is when I started to realize that there wasn't like everyone. Some, yes, but it was not actually the normality. It was actually unusual. But at the moment that I realized that, I was aware that I could not talk. If I would talk about it, that's when I would be judged as a crazy, as insane, excluded and left behind, maybe even locked up in some mental institute or taken to some counseling or psychiatric, some psychiatric doctors that they would give me, like it happened once when I was suffering of heavy anxiety, panic attack. They would give you a fucking medication to keep you calm, and then like many of my friends, some cousins, destroying their lives till now, many years. One of them is my brother. So I was lucky to drop those shit before it was too late. So anyway, I at the time I stopped. I never talked about it because obviously I was worried about the consequences, and that I'm sure that's what's happening to this young guy I met a few weeks ago. You can't talk because the system they created a system where anything that is going to disrupt this system they created for us has to be destroyed, excluded, taken away from the mainstream society. And that's the thing. The reality is that if we were in a civilized society, anyone that would actually try to impose this matrix, this madness that they created for us, try to impose it to others, would be taken and and there would be, we would speak, we would talk to those people to make them understand that is not right. So in a civilized society, we will not arrest them, we will not take them in a psychiatric hospital, but we would probably take them apart, we will speak to them, we will make them understand that a society our system should be a system of kindness, of sharing, of equality, where if you have more, you share with who has less, where everybody can move around because the planet is the same for everyone, and where the nicest person, the one that teach the most lovable value, is the one that has to be taken into consideration as example and as an idol. Anything else would be considered just madness. I mean, like the belief of an actor or actress or a sport player to be an idol and to treat them as some sort of a semi-god is a pure madness, isn't it? When you have doctors, you have philosophers, you have people that that are into charity, are literally unknown entities. So, in a civilized society, we would teach the other way around. Okay? But we are not. We are not, we've never been. We've never been a civilized society. This is a society built on lies, and the lies only benefit the few. There is much more out there we can see, and it's actually probably more important than what we can see. And it's time we start to focus on that, because they are trying to take away everything from us, right? And even our own thoughts.